Hi, everyone. This is Mark Ray, live from Normandy, and today I'll be hosting four or five, well, actually four, four guests. We're waiting for the third one to show up. We have Tony Sawyers in Mexico among us. We have Howdie Mickoski, and we have James Bartley in Australia. And of course, you know Howdy and James because I've had him on the show, but you don't know yet Tony. Tony, you may want to introduce yourself for a few seconds to the viewers.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mark. And it's good to see some friendly faces here. We've been doing the rounds a few years, Howdy and James. So it's nice to reconnect. So yeah, no, I'm just someone that, like everyone, searching for the truth of things, and worked out a few things on the way. And I describe myself as a shit shifter, basically. Just uncovering all the stuff that no one wants to hear and feeding people shit sandwiches. just to just to basically help with whatever's going on here, and finding answers like everyone else. And yeah, just happy to be here, sharing opinions, and seeing if we can figure out a few more things, basically, and work our way out of here, and hopefully bring everything else on the way down. I mean, that would be a lovely thing. I don't think that sometimes I think this place shouldn't even exist, the amount of evil and trauma that goes on here. So I always think that if we're the batteries that power this, the more of us that get out, and you take the batteries out of anything, then it stops working. So I kind of see it a little bit like that.
Hmm?
And of course, I think it's important to try and smile and make fun of it on the way out, hopefully. And because there's always a reptilian that goes hungry when you smile. So I think trying to make the best of a bad situation is important, and retaining our humor, and that part of it is important as well.
Yeah, we can take life and the afterlife so seriously all the time. So, well, I launched this debate a few months ago in French, following my movie in two parts, which was called The Ultimate Escape from the Afterlife. And well, Howdy was featured in it, and Sherry Swiney as well. And that's why, I asked you to debate the movie in English today for the English speaking viewers. And that's also the point I'm making is everyone has their own plan to exit or empty the cave, like Howdy would say, and that will be the difference between what we usually generally say. That we focus on the sufferings and the power system, the control system within the matrix, but is that really the good step to take, to find ways to actually empty this place completely? I'm talking about individually. I don't know if you know what I'm saying. How do maybe you have a grasp on that? It's the emotional attachments we know. I mean, I like the sentence by this Zen master that you mentioned in your book. You have to die first before you have to die. Before death. You have to die here first before death.
Oh yes, Bunyan, die before you die
Right.
and be absolutely dead, and
Hmm.
then do whatever you want. It's all good. And that's see, for me, the challenge for me anyway, when I started feeling a want, I mean, I've been dealing with this material for 25 years, but I never packaged it like I did in Exit the Caves 3 years ago. And I thought I had to present the problem, the experiential problem itself of a, a trap, a trapping reality, all those kind of things. But like you said, Mark, that's just part of it. That's just you have to see the experience, but just seeing the experience isn't enough. And as you were saying, and Tony was saying earlier, I mean that's a block point because if that's all you're doing, you're not working on what needs to be done for you as a total consciousness to attain that and disengage from this realm. So that's just as important. Emptying the cave for me is just as or more important than exiting the cave because they're two sides of a coin, and they go together and yet they seem paradoxically opposite. And yeah, it's my opportunity to just properly say hi to James because we've also never met in any way off. I know who you are. I've seen some of your stuff, but it's my first chance to say hello as well to you. I know Tony really well. I know Mark, so also can properly say hi to James, and good to see you.
Pleased to meet you, Howdie.
So, James, what is your viewpoint on the controllers and the watchers of this place?
Well, it has been pointed out already. Recognizing the problem is the fundamental starting point, right? You have to recognize the nature of the threat environment you are in or we are in, and then make positive steps individually, family-wise, your own little personal circle, so to speak, and working outwards. And I go back to what Tony said earlier before we started recording, that you got to bring joy into the equation. Sometimes it seems to me social media, the so-called truth community, however fragmented and acrimonious that is, it turns into a big echo chamber where everyone just starts fretting about the latest fearful thing that's coming down the pike, and I like to put things in a proper historical perspective, right? Imagine if we were in Europe and the Huns were invading, right? Or the Mongols, or the Soviet Red Army coming in from the east. I mean, compared to our predecessors, actually, we've had it quite good. Granted, this control system is coming at us from so many different vectors, but again, we recognize it for what it is, and we do our level best individually and on a family basis, working outwards to create our own kind of bubble. That's how I look at it. Like, I take my personal bubble with me everywhere I go, and when I'm out in public and I hear people and they're hopelessly mired in the matrix, like I don't scorn them, I don't pity them. I just recognize the environment that we're in, right? We're almost like, in a way, cosmic spies here. I don't want to put that, like, make it seem like an elitist kind of statement. Hello, Sherry.
Hi.
It's just that we recognize the nature of this place, at least, to some degree. And we're in this world, but we're not of it. And we can, in our own little way, uplift and encourage others. And I found that one of the best ways to do that, if someone is really starting their truth journey, so to speak, well, I'm not going to blow them out of the water by telling them stuff about that we take for granted, the reptilian overlordship and all this other stuff, and worldwide, off-world, global human trafficking, et cetera, because that's instilling fear and hopelessness and despair into somebody, right? Meet them at their needs, be there for them, right? And hopefully kind of guide them and help them navigate without sowing too much fear and defeatism into the equation. So I think it's important that we recognize, that old saying, where there's life, there's hope. It's not all about despair. And I think that's one of the problems that large segments of the so-called truth community have, because they don't really recognize the grand cosmic scheme of things. A lot of them still don't realize the nature of the spiritual warfare that we're in, right? So they're butting their heads against institutions, against the Federal Reserve, against the WEF, the World Health Organization, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the outward manifestations of essentially a spiritual war that's manifested in the physical plane. So, rather than butt heads against these seemingly immovable objects, there's a way to conduct warfare, almost like you can draw a parallel like from World War II, bypassing enemy strong points, going the path of least resistance, kind of in a Sun Tzu kind of fashion. So that's what I've been doing, and I try to, as much as possible, avoid all the drama and all the spitefulness and what have you. There's enough of that to go around, and just try to uplift the situation. I mean, Tony was talking earlier about how he went to a particular region in Mexico, and it was almost like going into the past where there was bright colors and there's very much of a local cultural atmosphere, and we've lost a lot of that. If you look at the cars, the automobiles of yesteryear compared to today, the cars were all different shapes and sizes and colors in the old days. Very much an expression of your outward self in many ways. Oh, there's Fred and his Mustang, and there's Sally in her Gran Torino. I mean, it was kind of like a form of identification. Now everything is so uniform. All the cars look the same. They all have the same drab kind of metallic color. And I think that's deliberate. It's the whole idea is to plug us into this Borg collective, so to speak. And as much as possible, I say, retain our individuality and maintain a hopeful spirit, and where possible, bring joy and cheer. So, sounds simplistic, but that's kind of how I do it, and we can really delve into it later. But that's how I feel about it.
Well, thanks, James. Hi, Sherry. You're with us.
Hi, I apologize for being late. I'm on Central Time, so you said 3 o'clock, so it's only 2:20 here. So
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
yeah. So when you said I'm waiting for you, I said, "Oh gosh." Okay.
Well, it's Bill Gates conversion time conversion.
Okay.
Google.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I started. It looks like I started recording as a backup for you.
Good. Yeah. So we mentioned you were on my show a couple of times in the past. So welcome back, Sherry.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
And
hi, Howdie. Hi, Tony. Hi, James. I'm glad to see you all.
So we were talking
It's
about
nice to
hope.
meet you, Sherry.
We're talking about hope. Actually, hope may be another insidious trap and deception in order to, get out of this place. I'm not saying alive, but at least trying to join our divine spark or essence, divine essence one day, because we're not going to fix this place. That's for sure. I mean, we can fix ourselves and maybe lower the pain and suffering and enjoy the good things in life while we can. But I don't think there's any hope for any critical mass overthrowing those overlords or this power system, Babylonian pyramidal control system that's turning more and more into a dystopian AI-based society, with like they show in sci-fi movies, with digital IDs and QR codes for everything. I mean, you won't be able to even purchase anything in the next couple of years, the way it goes, because in Europe, they're planning to implement this digital currency in October already. So I don't know what you think of the future of this dimension.
I think yeah, everything that you're saying there, obviously that's their plans, and it looks dystopian on the surface, but it goes back to what I was saying before about our own power. I think, and I'm guilty of this as well, I'll say, sometimes I think because we've been beaten down, and obviously we're a slave race, and we've forgotten that we're expansive consciousness. And I don't believe that we die. I think death is a place created in this realm. But what just tagging on to what James was saying there about like how colorful the true human spirit is, the creativity, we're the comedians, we're the storytellers, we're the musicians, we're the writers, we're everything that this AI distorted reality cannot be. And I think that, yeah, you might be right in terms of, I call it, you can't polish a turd, right? In terms of this realm, but maybe we are we can lay the foundations for maybe something in the future. And I think, again, maybe in the movement, we can feel like it's hopeless, and I don't think that necessarily having hope is a trap, because I mean I'm hopeful that this is going to be my last incarnation here. I mean, it's not built on hope, it's built on hours and hours and hours of researching things like Howdie's, James channels, Sherry's, like information that's put out there, discerning, doing the internal work, which I call embodying the sovereign spirit, dropping the savior programs. That's gonna keep people coming round and round again, because if you know, as we know, if it's Jesus, Archangel Michael, your guides, whatever, that's going to be used against you. So we've got to drop those savior programs and embody that sovereign energy, that no one's coming to save us. We're here to do that ourselves, taking responsibility, being courageous, speaking up, all those things. That this distortion, this AI, this architect that came in, this malware that came in and infected this realm, I think through Saturn. I don't think Saturn was always a bad place, but I think it can't cope with that sovereign frequency. It sends a shudder. And if you look at the frequency fence, I think the more people that can embody that sovereign energy, I think we can do something here. Now, is it going to be a utopia, new age, 5D, new earth? Of course not, and especially not probably in our lifetimes. But I think while we're here, at least, and who knows how long that will be, for me personally, I'm going with the attitude, I'm going to make a difference, and hopefully on the way we can inspire others, and then that becomes, like the acorn of the oak tree, right? It becomes something that can grow. And we've seen already down the years, I mean, there's some veterans on this call. I mean, Howdie, 25 years, James, I mean, we've known each other 10 years at least. Sherry, I'm not sure how long you've had your head down all these rabbit holes.
Well, at least 30, 40 years. So yeah.
Exactly, right? So we can all see how many people now are starting to ask questions than even 5 years ago. I mean, I work with a lot of people. A lot of people tell me that the illness woke them up, and that's now increasing exponentially. You see on these, I look at these newspaper articles on Facebook and things, when there's like we need the next poke in the arm. The comments now to what it was 5 years ago, where we were being called conspiracy theories, we were being told to put our tinfoil hat back on. Now they're laughing. They're like, no way. Or comment after comment after comment. So we're seeing in real time. Don't get me wrong, like they're still going to try, and I'm not saying that we've won, which the new age would say, but a lot of the things that they're doing now are not working on the consciousness of people. So I take great positivity from that. And I forgot what my point of was explaining all this. I think it was just to reiterate the fact that we need to embody what it means to be consciousness in terms of creativity, and get back to that, and laugh at some of the things that they're doing, poke fun of it. I mean, a lot of the things that they do are not funny, let's face it, but we need to go back to what it actually means to be a real human before we were a slave race, and bring back that colorful atmosphere. Because they can't deal with it. It can't compute. The AI can't compute. So, but at the same time, yes, of course, work out what to do when that time comes. Do the work now, as Howdie writes in his books. Disconnect from the things that could potentially hold us back. the most important thing is embodying that sovereign energy, dropping those belief systems, so doing the work on ourselves, and that echoes out into time and space. That affects the field. That doesn't just affect you, that affects other people around you. People can feel that sovereignty, you know, and then that affects everything else. And bit by bit, piece by piece, I think we can make an impact. And that's the mindset that I'm having anyway. I'm here right now. It's challenging, but think about it again. Look at all the stuff that they're doing. Like they're spraying us in the air. They're poisoning our food. There's etheric implants. James knows all this really well in terms of the stuff they're doing with the overlays and the entity attachments. Like you have to ask yourself the question. Do you think that they're a little bit scared? I mean, imagine how paranoid you need to do. Imagine how paranoid you need to be to have to do all that stuff to just a human soul. Like, what is it about us that they need to do all of this stuff? What are they so scared of? And I'm trying to reframe it like that now, because they obviously are scared of us. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to have to do all of this stuff. So I think James raised a good point. We can't spiritually bypass things. There's things that we need to be aware of, things that we need to protect ourselves from, things that we need to speak up about. But let's reframe it as we're the powerful ones, because we are. Like, they need our energy to survive. That tells you where the power is.
Right.
They're feeding on us, right? So they're the ones that need us. And I think it's time now to really start, embodying that spirit, the true human spirit, before all of this BS was done to us, and remembering what it was in terms of the creativity and the laughter and the story writing, the poetry. I mean, what happened to poetry? You know, and they can't do all of that stuff. So, yeah, I'm not spiritually bypassing, but I'm looking at a more empowered way, with the power being with us, rather than what they want you to believe, with the power being with them.
Right, but you know, I understand what you're saying, but isn't there a gap that is widening between the masses of the NPCs that will never wake up, and more people that are, waking up to their strategy and their tactics and scare tactics and ridicule tactics? Like, sometimes you feel like they're gambling with each other, and the Guinness Book of stupidity, stupid announcements like, it's getting colder because of global warming, for example. I mean, that's one of those examples that's ridiculous.
Can I just interject there, Mark? Because I want to. This is like the way I see it, it's like an AI. It's not creative in its ability to change its kind of tactics. You know, we see the same things: divide and rule, divide and conquer, problem, reaction, solution. So it's almost like, when you look at it, it's like, I always think, why Tony Blair's being rolled out again, right? For the I mean, even the most indoctrinated NPC, if you like, doesn't trust Tony Blair in the UK. Like, no one likes him. And he's kind of like the man there that's rolling out digital ID. And I'm thinking, that's not a good strategy. Like, if I'm them and and the UK is central to all the digital stuff, right? I'm like, whoever's planned that, it's not really a very good plan, because there's no one that's going to go along with what Tony Blair says. But it's because I don't see that them being creative in anything, in terms of, because what they've done over and over again is worked. It's now they're still trying to push things, but now it's not hitting home like it did before. But it doesn't have the creativity to maybe change the tactics too much, maybe a little bit, but it doesn't seem to have that, whereby it can just completely change things to a way in which, I don't know. That's the way it seems to me anyway.
Sherry, what do you think? Is there an awakening around where you live, or in Kentucky?
Well, right where I live, I don't see any awakening, but what I have seen so far, and I've been watching a lot of different programs, whether I agree with them or not. Because what I like to do is I like to watch what people are saying and doing, and then sometimes they'll say stuff I absolutely don't agree with, and other times they'll say stuff that I sort of kind of agree with them, and some of them are right on point. So I just look at all the stuff that I can so that I can come up with something that I can get an idea of what the majority of people on the planet are doing, kind of thing. I don't look at the news because, well, sometimes I do because I need a good laugh, but and like Tony says, and I know that there's some very serious things going on, but personally, I have to laugh. I don't laugh at the suffering that people are genuinely going through because my heart goes out to them. But when I think about the strategy that these guys are doing, the ones who want to control us, they can't create anything on their own. They have to duplicate what we do. That's all they know how to do. They have no creative, whatever you want to call it, genes or abilities or whatever to do. All they can do is mimic. So when I know that, and I tell other people that, they have to look at that and say, well, okay, so this is like, to me, and I was telling Mark, this to me is like a Monty Python comedy skit. The big picture, the whole thing looks like a Monty Python comedy skit that is so absurd that then I wonder, well, why do people go for this stuff? And that's because they're programmed to do that. So what do? It's not our responsibility to save the world. I learned that one a long time ago. I was trying to save the world way back when. And I learned the hard way that, oh, wait, that's not my job. I can't save the world anyway. All I can do is save myself. And when I do that, then that hopefully will rub off on somebody else and they'll say, oh, okay, well, there's kind of a way to do this. So that's my take on it. I've been reading Howdie's newest book, and I haven't gotten very far with it, Howdie, but it's a really interesting read so far. And I made a couple of notes that at some point during this discussion, I'd like to bring them out. But yeah, anyway, so I kind of agree with everything that everybody's saying here, because I think the main focus is the main focus, how do we escape the matrix, or how do we get out of this mess? And I was reminded this morning of a guy named Buckminster Fuller, who was a futurist. And he was, I come from a scientific background. I have an engineering background. So I kind of come from that place, which was why I was enthralled with Buckminster Fuller a long time ago. And one of the things that he said, I wrote it down so I get it right. He said, well, hold on.
No problem.
Where am I? Oh, here we go. I think, did I put it down here? Oh, well, heck. Anyway, he was saying that, oh, here we go. So this is in response to something that is in Howdie's book on page 43, where Howdie, you're talking about placing blame on the corrupt system itself. It's kind of like a built-in corruption in the whole system. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute, that's a valid point, but what about the people? They have to the individual, they have to be responsible for themselves and not go into this savior mode. And then the quote that was Buckminster Fuller just popped into my mind. I had to go look it up to get the words right, but he says, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what will work. How do we do that? I don't know. But, there's a lot of people, say, in the farming culture around the globe. They're here in the United States, but they're everywhere else, from what I can see. And they're building their own little communities. They're doing their thing. They're they're using nature, they're using regenerative farming and doing things that are really good. So to me, that's a big plus. That's a point, that's a step in the right direction. That's using a system that makes the existing system of, let's do GMOs and let's poison everybody and let's poison the land and kill everything. That makes that system obsolete. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Yeah, I have a question for Howdie as well. In his book, he's talking about the navigation in the afterlife process, described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead and so forth. Some people will need to navigate, and some will go straight home without having to navigate and sort out the traps and so forth. And in the afterlife, isn't our life, our incarnation, a repetition, a rehearsal for those who will want to navigate and sort out the traps afterwards? But isn't that more dangerous than just go home directly? But you have to have much clarity to do so, right?
As always, everything I share or say is always built on my own experience and my own thesis, and it's just I always like everybody to remind everybody, certainly never to take whatever I say as an automatic something you can believe. I've had a very strange life, and that strange life has built itself into the experience. My feeling is if your consciousness crosses over into the after death realm, it's too late. So it's already too late. The work has to be done now, like right now. Anyone who thinks that they're going to do something later or navigate later or have some sort of escape plan, 1 in a million might do it. The ones who, and we have to say it carefully, the ones who will no longer be recycled into the dream, no longer be recycled into this simulation, though they've had that total realization of self right now, and or at the exact moment of death. I think if you've crossed over and you're like, I got the white light, do the best you can. And I mean, I hope that, yeah, whatever awareness someone can take, they can at least be in a still point, but it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult because it's so confusing. And that my guests here have more direct knowledge of touching exactly what's like in the astral realm and these other realms and how to navigate. It's really, really difficult. So my point is, and the way Mr. Park sort of explained things to me, there's the Korean monk I spent a year with. He was very clear, like, what are you waiting for? Like what are you waiting for? Do the work right now. You have the energy, you have the time, you have the focus, so finish the job now. And then once you're finished, similar to the quote I just said with Tony, then you can do what you want. Right? What that means when Bunyan said to die before you die, it doesn't actually necessarily mean physically die. It means to die to the reality, die to yourself, die to all of the things that is trapping your attention, that is causing you to go outward, instead of finally saying, I'm letting all of that go. And I'm just going to go to the one place I've never looked. And I'll just be inward for everything else. And we do that now. And I guess that's my message. And I know everyone else here would have in the same way, the same message. I mean, you can't dispute that message, but then it becomes that question, what does going within mean? And that's a whole nother story, right? A whole nother topic of discussion.
I've heard that meditation is the best way to go within. And for some people, that's true. But I don't think not everybody can meditate. And I listened to a guy, I can't remember who it was now. It'll come to me, I guess. But I know, it was a physicist called Thomas Campbell. And he was teaching meditation, and he had a bunch of people who had like ADHD, and their minds couldn't quiet their minds. And they just, he was like, well, okay, so how do I get these guys to to actually do this work. And so he told him, he said, okay, so now go into a daydream. Just go in full into a daydream. Go ahead and use your mind and let it run and let it be, real active and be there. Just be there in that daydream. And I thought, what a great idea, because I know how I am sometimes. I can daydream and be there. I'm gone from this reality. I'm in the daydream and I'm richly, experiencing it. And then I'll come back and it's like, oh, okay, so that was this. Whatever I learned from that is usually something I can use. And then I can meditate sometimes, and I can go way deep in, but not for very long, because my mind just keeps, getting real busy. So I'm thinking that, there might be people on the planet, there probably are people on the planet who would love to know how to get in touch within, but they hear that the only thing that is available is meditation. And apparently there are other ways to do it. So keep that in mind, guys. Whoever's listening to this podcast, I mean, that's a different way to do it. And so I do agree that we have to go within, and we can't do that unless we can quiet our minds. And the dark side, what I call the archons, because I'm really enthralled with the Sophia story, the Gnostic Sophia story, and I think you mentioned them in your book, Howdie. So I knew about the archons when I was a child. I didn't know they were called archons. I knew that they were attacking me, and that was part of my story. And then later on, I learned about the Nag Hammadi library and what the Gnostics wrote about them, and then put the two together, and I had not done that. So when that happened, I thought, oh, okay, they have a name. That's a good thing. By then, I had done a lot of study and research and trying to figure out. First, I wanted to reprogram my mind, and I didn't know how to do that. And then the other thing was I wanted to know how do I get rid of these guys, because they were plaguing me. And so, long story short, when I heard the Sophia story and how that's connected to the archons, I fully agreed with that. It's kind of like plasma physics wrapped in story. It's a myth, and you can call a myth reality or not. It depends on, what you feel with this whole thing. I think a lot of this is feeling, intuitive feeling. Anybody got any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same. I think the truth has a vibration. It's something that you can feel. I think everything has a vibration. It's kind of like it's kind of hits you in the gut, basically. So, but I think that also comes with practice as well. I think sadly we've lost the ability, not only our creativeness, but we've lost the ability to discern information. The vast majority of people have anyway, and that's why people just go with what they're told. And if you look at the new age, it's more about what feels good, but doesn't feel true. It's just how it makes you feel emotionally. So I think that's actually talking about doing the work now, which is what Howdie's talking about. I think that's a big part of it. I think discernment is a muscle, and I think if you don't use it, it gets weak, just like anything else. And that's a big part of stepping into our what I refer to as sovereign energy, and that's learning the ability to discern again, because there's so many programs that they get people into in terms of you don't need to think for yourself, in terms of like religion and the new age and stuff, that people are just going from one thing to another. And if they're not being told what to think by deities and gods and guides, they're being told what to do by politicians. And so people are just wandering around, walking around, just being told, pass from pillar to post, and they're not using their own discernment. They're not thinking for themselves. So I definitely feel that, yeah, going inwards, reconnecting with that all-knowing, if you like, that truth frequency, or intuition, whatever you want to call it. I think it sounds something like so simple, And on the surface, you think, well, everyone does that, but everyone doesn't do that. And even in terms of like alternative media and truth communities, we were just talking off air about the number of people that still think like politicians are coming to save them and Trump and all this stuff. So I think that has to be a key tool in the toolbox to yeah, in terms of like going within and doing the work now is using that discernment and reconnecting with our intuition, because that appears to be where there is like a higher knowledge that we can tap into. So for sure.
Yes.
I just like to add to that a little bit. There definitely is a truth vibe, and the opposite of that holds as well. There is an untruth vibe, if you will. And I had the great good fortune. I didn't realize I was fortunate at the time, but I had cousins on both sides of my family that were pathological liars when I was growing up. And what happens is, not only is there an expectation after a while that just practically anything that comes out of their mouth is going to be a lie or a falsehood or a half truth, but an expectation not only from a verbal perspective, but along with it, an energetic uh, kind of stimuli comes with it. And then down the track, when I was out in society, and then I would feel that energy again, it got to the point where I didn't have to wait for the whole falsehood to unravel in front of me. I didn't have to listen to the whole false story anymore, right? Because there's just this vibe, this energetic component to it, right? Uh, I mean, it was kind of funny. I look back now, like my cousin that was closest in age to me, he was always trying to play a game of one-upmanship with me. I mean, as far back as I can remember, and his stories became more and more fanciful as time went on, right? So when I realized that there was an energetic shift, and I go out into society and I feel the same thing, and lo and behold, it's coming from the media, it's coming from politicians, that same vibe of untruth, that helped me a lot, right? It helped me to do a lot of navigation, especially when I really put my head down and began investigating and researching. When it became apparent to me at some level that we live in what we now call a matrix, that there's some form of mass manipulation going on. So eventually I developed kind of a water off a duck's back kind of attitude towards it, kind of like an energetic shrug, if you will, just slewing off or shrugging off whatever new falsehood was being excreted in my direction. Tony was saying about the emoji laughs and the comments people would put into mainstream news stories about the next big outbreak and this and that. And because people found out the hard way the last several years that, yeah, these institutions that people look up to and look up to for guidance and how to run their lives, that they're all washed up, that they're full of uh, mistruths and half truths and outright lies. So it's become a struggle for survival for many people at this point, right? And again, there's an energetic vibe to that. And also to the point that Sherry made, I'm similar. I can kind of go within and kind of not have all these random thoughts go through my mind for a short period of time, and then it happens again. And coming from an insomniac perspective, to me, sleep is very precious. And like Sherry, I could lay there and my thoughts would be racing. So what I found out, the best way to eventually fall asleep was when these thoughts and images were flitting through my mind, instead of being subconsciously pulled into it, and then Mr. Spock intervenes and I try to logically, what's this like line of reasoning, thought process. What are these images all about? Which hooks me in. I've kind of taken that water off a duck's perspective when I'm laying there and all these images are flitting through my mind. I'm trying to sleep. And then I realized after a while that if I just those thoughts go and those images go without engaging, that in itself will take me into the sleep state, right? Whereas before, it was an internal battle to stop all these thoughts and all these images racing through my mind. I realized just kind of like let it wash over me, right? So I kind of take that perspective, and I do have a humorous kind of outlook on things. So when I see obvious falsehoods coming my way, when I see obvious narratives coming my way, it's like water off a duck's back. I try not to get emotionally invested in it. If anything, I laugh at it because, as Sherry pointed out, not losing fact of the great tragedy involved, but you have to laugh at some of this at times, right? And the reaction also of the masses to the bogus stimuli that's being presented to them, right? And I don't mean laugh in a demeaning, elitist sort of way, but kind of like canned laughter, like we used to see in the old TV shows in America, right? It's that again, right? We're having a Homer Simpson moment. So, I'm big for nostalgia. It's like, yeah, it's important not to get caught up in into all these different hooks and snares that they set for us. But I wouldn't say from a naive perspective something to be said about ignorance being bliss. But when I was younger, and I really enjoyed music, I enjoyed concerts, I enjoyed, at least in the old days, certain team sporting events, right? Because they were pleasant distractions at the time. So I'm the kind of guy where if I'm going to amuse myself or kind of ground myself, if other than reading a book or spending time with my family, I'll just watch something from the past that kind of gave me good past vibes, if that makes sense. It's a way, in my own way, I found to decouple, to detach momentarily from all the stuff around us. And I think I know in my case, I have to be able to find that happy medium where I'm in this world, I'm not of it. I can distract myself, if you will, with pleasant thoughts, pleasant memories, what have you. That's something that they can't take away from us. And the point's already been made about the intrusions of AI. It's stunning and shocking the degree to which people rely on AI. Just the short amount of time Chat GPT, which I've never used, has been around, the reliance people already place on it for their podcasts, for their social influencing. And I can understand the utility of it. If you want artwork of some kind, my webmaster does that and it uses AI to, create images based on whatever the topic of a given podcast is. I understand that, right? You might as well use some of the tools that are available, but this over reliance on it. Mark was talking about the QR codes. Everything now for TVs, if you want to sign into like a free TV program, you need a QR code. It's everywhere. It's a form of plugging us in. When I think that what we should do is unplug, but that's my little spiel about that.
Yeah, that's my opinion too, to unplug. And I've been saying that for decades. The best thing to do is to unplug from society and make your own way. So, but now that we're in AI, now my son is a computer programmer. It's like, okay, how do we do this now? Because he's a real big kind of a guru guy. He teaches what he does, and he shows people what he does and how he does it. And I'm like, okay, so now what? What do we do now when AI is getting so big? I mean, how are you going to do this now? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I just want to know what your thoughts are. And he's like, well, it's a little bit too late for me. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not too late. It's not too late. It's not too late. Please, it's not too late. So, but yeah, and but he's like he understands what the problem is, and I don't think he's going to let himself go too far. I don't really know, but I'm hoping not. I don't want to say hope, but I'm thinking not. Anyway, so there's a lot of people who are really relying on AI. They're putting out some, I've seen some pretty scary TikTok clips and stuff like that that are people are saying, "Oh my God, they're sentient and they're telling me what to do." And it's like, "Oh, this knows everything, and so now I'm gonna just redo my life and stuff like that." Boy, that's really spooky to me. I mean, don't they have enough to, well, I guess they don't even consider that there are such beings that we can't see that are, kind of, if they have their will, they'll destroy us. That's what they want to, do it. First, they want to, mess us up and screw us up, and then they want to just, destroy us and start over again. So that's our big trap that we have to avoid. So I'm not doubting that there is a trap. I've seen people fall into the trap, and it's like, I don't know how to help you out of it. You'll have to do that on your own. So it's a hard thing to be watching this stuff for me anyway. So, but to James's point on meditation and getting to sleep, I found that, here's a tip, James. I found that if you take long, slow, deep breaths very slowly, your mind calms down and you will fall asleep. Give that a try.
Yeah, going back to this AI takeover, I think it's a war on information, and you mentioned the truth, but we're really literally living in the post-truth era, and AI is playing a big part in mixing things up so that they make lies look true, and vice versa. I think it's a memory war as well. Um, Going back to the memory wipe in between lives, I can imagine that there's a memory wiping a program during our incarnation, our lives, because everything we call, if everything we call reality were in fact merely the result of a memory recording, it's basically the grounds for the matrix to exist. If you erase a person's memory, they no longer have a history. If you delete people's memory, they no longer have roots. And you insert false memories, and you can change their perception, and that's what's going on. And with those reality shifts, they're altering the memory scripts, and I think this is the real danger. Everything is based on our memory. Imagine towards the end of our lives, incarnation, terrestrial incarnation, we are in bad shape, mentally and physically. I'm just taking the usual scenario with old elderly people who don't always end up well, with all their capacities. If all that they've learned, that we've learned, all of us here, during our incarnation is wiped out by the time we, go on to try to rejoin our consciousness or divine spark, or another reality, and so forth, and leave this place for good. We don't have any memories left of what our destination will be, or tactics will be. What could that be an impairment? A major impairment? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's something that gets raised quite a lot in my videos, that people are concerned with all the dementia and the Alzheimer's, which that's all heavy metals. Obviously, that never used to exist. It's all the stuff that people are breathing in and everything like that. It's difficult to say. I don't know if we actually know for sure the answer. I mean, it's the same way as like they pump people with morphine just before they die. So I guess the goal would be, to try and die as conscious as possible. That would be, I guess, an ideal scenario, but unless you're going to self-delete, I mean, and that's another show, a topic, and very controversial in and of itself. So I would like to think that and I've read accounts, and people seem to be of the opinion that when you pass, even if you've, got some memory issues, that those things come back. But I wouldn't like to say for sure. I mean, it's kind of up for debate really as to what happens there. But it's certainly concerning the hospital environment. I mean, I really hope that I don't end up in one of those, being pumped with all kinds of different drugs and morphine. And you would imagine, just like knowing how evil these parasites are, the probably those things are probably not in our best interest just before we pass over. Let's be honest, they don't do anything in our best interest. So if they can find ways to make it a little bit more hazy and on the way out, then I'm sure that they would probably do that. And then they hit you with the love bomb and the light tunnel and everything, the light frequency technology. And then, your dead granny comes and says, hey, hey, Mark, it's me. It's like, so if they can make that process more easy for them, like, I'm not going to discount that they wouldn't do that. There's no level of evil that these parasites go to. So it makes you wonder that would make it more challenging. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has come across any other information about that. I mean, I'm just going by comments that people leave on my channel and what people have said in the group that we're in, Mark, in Sovereign Spirits. I think that's been brought up a few times. I can't remember all the responses, but I do remember reading a few where people said, well, when you pass, you get your life memories back. But you think about it, like they wipe, like even dreaming, like how, like for the 2 to 3 seconds when you wake up in the morning, you get a quick glimpse of what you dreamt, then it's gone. So it's they're always trying to wipe and delete. But I don't know, on a wider zooming out level, can consciousness ever completely ever like forget everything? I still think that we have maybe knowings, because again, it goes back to consciousness being more powerful than this artificial replication, which Sherry spoke of, which can only replicate, and it's not of a true essence. So can that ever fully ever be deleted permanently? Or can we tune in via our intuition and knowing, which we were talking about before, to these kind of like higher truths? I think we can, but I don't think for 1 minute that they're going to make that process straightforward. So I'd like to actually hear what other people have got to say. I know I haven't given a definitive yes or no on the questioning point. I think that's the point of this podcast, that we can debate these things. So I don't know if anyone's got any other info or intel in that.
Well, we know of stories where the person comes in, and as a child, they definitely remember their past life, and they go and investigate, and they find out that, okay, so I remember one story. This little boy was remembering that he was an airline pilot in the war, and he got killed in the war, but he knew the name of the plane and the model and all that stuff, and he remembered the people that he knew, who were, by then they were quite old. And so they did this investigation, and it was a remarkable story. That when the plane turned out to be correct, the name that he had being in the service, in the military service, was correct. The people that he claimed to know, that he didn't know, he couldn't know because he was just a little boy, those were correct. So that kind of blew everybody's mind. And so there are other stories, and I don't remember them all now, but So that's I don't know that anybody's actually diving into that. I would think that they'd want to dive into that and try to figure out what happened to that this little boy remembered. What happened to him that he remembered when a lot of us don't? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know if you've looked up past life regressions, but they're pretty interesting as well. And it seems like many people that have regressed remember the way they were murdered or killed, or the way they died in their past lives, and they keep marks on their body, and that, or maybe a pain in the neck or something, when they got hung, and so the trauma seems to be following, throughout the incarnations, the trauma points. That's I don't know what you think of that, but
Another issue that's come up, I've had oh, her name escapes me now, unfortunately. It's still kind of early over here, but she talked about how when you look at the birthing process in our hospitals,
Mm.
it's like they bookend you, right? It's like when people pass away in hospitals, they have this cocktail of drugs and morphine and what have you at the time of passing. And then when people are being born, coming into this earthly plane, something very similar happens as well. Oftentimes, the women are given uh, like artificial drugs to promote contractions, and also opioids for painkillers and what have you. So the child is born into our earthly plane like in an opium haze, pretty much, through violent, unnatural contractions. So just coming into our world is something of an ordeal, right? It's been likened even to an alien abduction, the process of a birth in hospitals. And then if you look at how they protocoled so many people to death during, the crisis outbreak, whatever you want to call it, right? Uh, a classic example when we've known all along these medical industrial institutions are not for general health. But we saw that in spades during the lockdowns, and people were literally protocoled to death in these hospitals. So people that we thought had consciences, people that we thought had empathy, like so many of these medical professionals, it turned out that they were just order followers. Like, well, not all of them. Some certainly had a conscience and had empathy and spoke out about the atrocities they'd seen working in the hospitals during that time. But a great many people working not just in the hospitals, but in all these different institutions, they prove themselves to be kind of order followers. So, uh, yeah, it speaks to that need for that personal sovereignty, and that uh, to operate and think and behave at a higher moral plane. This miasma type system, it has a definite downward drag on people living here. Everything that we see in the media, in the news, and what have you, it just reinforces this really kind of feral mentality. And that's another red flag. You were talking about how our history is being erased. That's a hallmark of these parasitic, communistic type societies, control systems. They wipe out the past, right? This is why, like I mentioned earlier, just as a pleasant diversion, I watch or I read about sporting events from the 60s, 70s, and the 80s before it got completely corrupted, and when they actually used to compete back then to some degree, right? So I see how even in the sporting world, how the three major sports in America have been subjected to so much social engineering that the very nature of the sports today promote uh, like a lackadaisical mentality, a sense of entitlement, uh, not a team concept, very much of an individual selfish concept of play within a team concept. That doesn't even make sense, but that's what they've managed to do. So I've been around long enough where just looking at a social construct like a professional team sport event, how much social engineering has gotten its hooks into that. And by extension, it's an influencing everyone who follows those sports, right? And there's a disconnect where today's sports fans don't recognize what happened in the past. They only see the only example they have of their favorite sport is what they see currently, because the AI and the ease of social media and Google. See, we're from an age of, all of us here are from an age of archivists. We were readers. We wrote books. We wrote term papers. We wrote research papers when we were in college. So we were habituated to learning, to the discipline of study itself was imbued into us. But as you can see now, fast forward, we have college graduates that are functionally illiterate, that can't speak the language properly, that their mind is just full of communistic Marxist garbage. And they're just what they manage to do is bring out the malcontent in everybody, in society at large. So you have a bunch of arch complainers, arch whiners, arch whingers, but no one wants to do anything.
Yeah, they complain behind their screen. So, yeah, major sports events are just Masonic rituals. They're
Yes, they are
mass black magic events, and everything is scripted. It allows us to see that this reality is scripted because the results are scripted already. I have one example that comes to my mind: the last World Soccer World Cup. In the teaser, what it took place in Saudi Arabia, right? Or Kuwait? No, Kuwait and Saudi. Qatar, right? Qatar. In the teaser, you see the two flags of the finalists, France and Argentina, pop up. In the teaser. I mean, how would they know that and how to put that together? They were the two finalists.
They also had the infinity sign.
Yeah.
Did you remember that?
Yes.
Which in the new age they think is a good thing, but it's actually the looping, the looping of the
Yes,
light
it's the
line.
recyclement. Yes.
Right.
I have to disagree with you on that, Tony, for a minute. Not that the new age thinks it's a good thing, but in energy medicine, that figure 8 is very healing. Very healing. I know that because I've done that on myself and I've watched other people do it. So there's something about doing the energy that it is the infinity sign, and that's a mathematical sign. It's infinity. So I don't know why the new age thinks it's a good thing. And then what did you say it was now?
It's the sign of the recycling, coming back lifetime after life.
Okay, so that's true too. They're both true. So
that's why I put it in the World Cup
but in energy medicine, for sure, it's very healing. I fell down. This goes back several months ago. I fell down and I hit my head. And when I opened my eyes were not working. They were all screwed up. And so I just did a figure 8 in front of my eyes. And then for after a couple of minutes, my eyesight came back and it was fine. So, and then, yeah, so then there's stories from the teacher that I took a class from. Her name is Donna Eden. She's in her 80s too. And so she had a daughter who was on her deathbed, and she said that was not acceptable. So she figure 8'd her all over her body for however many hours it took. It didn't matter. And her daughter was fine. She came back. So that's proof to me. That's what the one that I did on my eyes is definite proof to me. And the one that she talks about with her daughter is an anecdotal truth. So I don't think the figure 8 is all bad. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And people have a tendency, which I've noticed a lot, to either take the good and the bad and say, okay, it's all good, and no, it's all bad. And there's no in between. There's no, wait a minute, there might be two sides to this coin, or there might be more. We never know the whole story. That's
It,
the
de- it
It's just
depends
for
on
if they're putting it in our faces on TV in the World Cup. For me, that's a red flag. But I don't know. I mean,
Well, that
maybe
could be in that case for sure, but I'm just
yeah,
saying, I gotta add that there's another side to that story. So
yeah.
we just have, what I've noticed is people have a tendency to want to, throw out the baby with the bathwater because there's something wrong with this story, but now I'm just going to throw the whole thing out. And wait a minute, we got some good parts in there that we could probably save and use, to our advantage. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, predation charges symbols, sigils, and with their intentions and energies, so they recoup the good and bad energy to their advantage in their favor. So that's how it goes with every symbol and forms and sigils and all the
Yeah,
symbolisms out there.
maybe it was more about the intention behind you using the symbol because
Yeah.
you had a pure intention, like Mark says. I know what is it? The swastika is actually originally a good sign. Apparently, I haven't done a great deal of research, but I found that quite interesting. That they inverted that and used that for evil. So yeah, I mean, again, yeah, it could be just an inversion, like many inversions that they charge it with, like you say, Mark, some kind of negative frequency or energy. But yeah, it's up for debate again, isn't it?
Well, I
Well,
think
Well, I better jump in. I'll answer Mark's question from way
ahead.
back a while ago. So which was about the dementia, which is where kind of this thing started. So I'm going to try to say this very clear for the audience. What happens to the character in this reality does not matter at all. What happens to Howdie does not matter. He's a fictional character in a video game. Right. This is what does matter is that the starting point of a realization of your true nature or emptiness or whatever name you want to call it, pure awareness can arise. And so when that has arisen, what happens to the character really is minor as long as that is held, because what can hold, what can stop nothing? What can trap nothing? So a trap can only happen for something. And that totality is always there. It's always present. It's just we have a wall, we have a cover, we have a blocking mechanism. And all of the things that we're talking about, like Tony and Sherry and James are talking about, it's part of the work to break open the wall, to punch a hole in that wall. And it's difficult, it's hard, it's challenging, but once you've got the hole in the hole's in the wall. It doesn't get filled in again. And so to those people who are concerned about, and I know like same thing, Tony, I've heard a lot of people have asked me that question, like what happens if this, what if I'm gonna die and somebody gives me morphine? And I just say, well, if you've done your work on self-definition and you know who you really are, totally who you are, then what happens to you in the physical world at the end won't really matter. And I'm saying that as a way to kind of encourage your work, encourage everyone's internal work, and let go of some of the fear that I have to do something, that something's wrong with me. I have to fix something. No, you just have to see clearly. That's all. You just have to see clearly. But it's a task of a lifetime.
Yeah, well, most definitely. We lost Tony, I think.
Yeah, I guess he was first to go. I think he probably maybe had his work to do.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, okay, all right. On paper, it wouldn't matter. Yeah, consciousness is well, consciousness and our divine singular spark, because consciousness can englobe and several people, masses of people all together. The consciousness doesn't have a location or is not invested in one particular avatar or person or site. But
That awakens.
Mhm.
That leaves the matrix. And that same totality is Mark's, Sherry's, James, yours out there. That's what awakens. Howdy's still a fictional character in a fictional world, and that thing back there can say thank you for what the Howdy thing did in the course of this life.
Mm.
That really, if I really have a job, it was to break down the walls, to create that internal connection, and then what does that need from me? What does that need? How can I live a selfless life so that thing, the true totality of what I am, can return to its actual complete totality? That's the work. And so it's actually quite comforting, so it's confusing and comforting at the same time, but it's not easy and it's impossible to explain in words. I had an intensive in Germany for 4 days, and that question came up often. Can you please explain to me, when you reach emptiness, stop. I can't explain it. It's impossible to explain. I can point it. We can read the Faith Mind Sutra. We can read some very powerful scriptures that are touching it, but you can't explain it. You have to, as I think it was James or something, you have to feel it. You can't think it. And that's the shift. When the shift starts to move from thinking to feeling to seeing, you're on your way.
Yeah, when you acknowledge that you're non-existing anymore, you're just not connected to that character in that video game. But I have a question also about that, because many spiritual researchers, I'd say, are mentioning that we have fragments of our divine sparks on various timelines at the same time. So how do you gather all those fragments all together at the moment of departure to make sure there's nothing left of your original essence, or somewhere in one of the matrix layers?
Well, I'll try to say this really quickly, and then I'll let
Yeah.
James and Sherry talk, so I don't take much of the value of the conversation. But to me, what they're sensing is the initial fragmentation. I see there was only one spark that entered this reality, and that was the demiurge's great trick on that spark, was to separate it into hundreds of thousands or millions of individual sparks. And one spark is connected to this one particular thing, this one object here. And really the only job, like some of us are saying, is just get the battery energy out. We just have to return the spark that's us, that's a connect, let that go back, and eventually wait for all the others. It is true, there needs to be a collection point, but it's not I have to collect my sparks. That thing has to collect all of our sparks, of which I'm just one little fragment of which to go back. But I'm now going to let James and Sherry talk, so I keep rambling.
Go ahead, Sherry. I'll go after you.
Okay, well, yeah, it sounds to me like what you're talking about is something that I've thought about too, because I've been trying to figure things out just like everybody else here. And it seems to me that, okay, so now what if we are fractals of the divine source, the original source of life? How did that happen? And so I may not know how it happened, but I feel that it did happen. And so maybe I'm just a fractal of that primary source. So maybe that's all we all are. So we're not really these physical forms, although here's the question. If we're not really physical forms, we're just an illusion. So am I just a figment of my own imagination, or am I a figment of somebody else's imagination? So I don't think that that's
Excellent question. If someone takes that question for 3 months, they would get a ton of information from working on it. Yeah,
Descartes kind of postulated that way back when.
yeah. Well,
Please continue.
He was the one that thought that I don't remember now. He was the one that said I think therefore I am, or something like that. And
Oh, Descartes. Yeah. Check. Yeah.
Yeah. And the key as a thought experiment, not that he believed this literally, but what if our collective existence uh, is merely like an idea on the fingertip of a giant monster that we can't see, or words to that effect. I mean, you probably remember that better than me, Mark, because you're French. But that's what I took away from it when I studied, or I was made to study Descartes way back when. But yes, I think, therefore I am. That's a good starting point. And look at all the efforts, like Tony pointed out, of uh, this demiurgic force trying to separate us from source. It erases our past life memories. It distorts our own history in the current timeline, in the current incarnation we're in. Uh, I mean, that's kind of why I segued into sports a little while ago. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but it was related to the point we were making, that like the sports fans of today in all these sports genres all over the world, they have a complete disconnect what's happened in the past in even the sports that they follow. They don't know who the founding figures were. They don't know who the great players and the great teams of the past were. When we were younger, if we wanted to learn more about any subject, sports, music, what have you, we had to read. We had to find magazines and books. We had to talk to people that were around at that time in that era who came before us. But what they managed to do, and it's something of a paradox, not really because of the nature of the control system, but one would think in a semi-perfect world that the more advanced we became, the more access to technology that we have, it would improve our lives in myriad ways, especially our understanding of ourselves and of history. But that's not the case. It's been the opposite. The the advent of digital devices and AI and social media has, I think, collectively dropped uh, like a number of IQ points across the whole spectrum, right? To the point where when we, and this is not a criticism, it's an observation. I'm in my 61st year. We're all kind of getting up there, everyone on this panel. So I can see when I look at younger people, right, just really how disconnected they are. This is a dangerous world we live in, not to wallow in the fear and all that, but just making an observation. And yet I'm driving along and I'm seeing kids and even adults walking along looking at their phones. They're not paying attention to the road. There could be a hole in the ground, a pothole. There was a guy in San Diego several years back. He was walking along the sea cliffs, and I know that area very well. He looking at his phone, and he fell right off the cliff. And then a father and son risked life and limb trying to retrieve his body. They almost died, right? All because of one person's negligence, basically, of tuning out the real world. So I think that it goes back to maintaining and strengthening our connection to organic source, if you will. So many of these things, I'm sure more spiritually evolved, technically advanced civilizations have a happy, some of them have developed a happy median between AI technology and the spiritual life. But that hasn't happened in this world. It's quite the opposite. Uh, what I see from all these crash retrievals of alien technology and the development and the back engineering of alien technology, that's been seeded into the mainstream. Uh, if we look at the digital devices that people are walking around that they're enmeshed into these days, I could track that technology back to the debris field at Roswell, right? And other crash retrievals and instances when advanced technology came into the hands of the military industrial complex. Instead of being utilized to enhance our lives, it's been quite the opposite. They've used that technology to enmesh us further into this matrix. So it becomes a process of detachment, disentanglement from this system. And plugging into organic source, and easier said than done. I'm a work in progress myself, and I do believe, like Howdy says, it's a work of a lifetime, right? But it definitely is worth it. The greater the struggle, the greater the prize. And I think as time goes on now, uh, we're seeing the rollout of the digital currency and this smart grid system. There's no better time than now to really get in touch with our authentic selves. So I've got get ready at my end to get my day started. So I just wanted to leave you all with that thought. Thank you, Mark, Howdy, Sherry,
Thanks a
and
lot, James.
Tony, wherever you are.
Thanks.
And I'll have to check in with you on another time. So thanks so much
Thanks a
for
lot,
giving me the
James.
opportunity.
Thanks
Nice
for
to
being
see
with
you
us.
again, James.
Have a great day at work.
You too.
Thanks
Cheers,
for being with
James.
us.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
We'll stay in touch.
We'll stay in touch. Yeah, what James said actually points out to the real farmers of this human cattle farm. I'd say they are non-human entities. I wouldn't call them just plain aliens, but they are around us. Non-human entities, non-human beings are around us in the parallel dimensions. Like the photo I have behind me is from my movie. Well, from the movie Contact. On the beach with the uh, uh, illusion, with the projection of Jodie Foster's dad. She went through an NDE. She's living an NDE in the movie. That's what it points out to. And what I'm saying is, like, the screens that he was mentioning are the real metaverse. Even if it's retro and back engineering, alien tech, and so forth. Yes, it is, but it's the real metaverse are the screens. The VR helmets, headgears are not very successful to entrap their users, because they're not that many. Just gamers and geeks and so forth. So, but I mean, the real metaverse is our phone, our phones. Everyone is, is totally hooked on the phones and doesn't even look at the real world around us. Which brings me back to your quote, Howdy, in your book. I think you mentioned the demiurge created this world, but nature created us, or something like this. This is our strength, right?
Yeah, you're referring to a vision I had in like 2009 when I was with one of the native medicine men I spent time with, and it was just a strange possibility. It's not something I say I agree with or I disagree with. It's just there's been so much talk of over the years, aliens created us, aliens changed us, aliens manipulated us. And so when this dream said, well, actually, it was nature that created us in order to do, in order to bring the whole reality out of a type of trap or a type of something back then. I can't remember exactly the words I used. And it was so unique because it did explain a lot of possibility of why we are the way we are, why we don't function properly here, why we're the only creature that, has to wear clothes and needs to make a fire and needs to, has bizarre things like hay fever and gets colorblind and, we just, we just, we just don't fit here. And it would make sense if something within the matrix is what created us, not the creator itself. And that, remember, we go back to the beginning where Tony was saying they're really afraid of us. And that would make sense, is that they wouldn't be afraid of us if they were our creators. Why would we be frightening to them? We are literally their children. But if we were created by something else, not the demiurge and the archons, that would also make sense as to why these forces are very concerned about us, because we're really different.
And they're working hard on tweaking and modifying our DNA as well. So, maybe to their image, or to a better slave, and peaceful and quiet, obedient type of slave, which the majority of the human herd is, well, human, or half human, or I think there are several humanities among us. Anyway, so Sherry, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Howdy, that we were not made by the demiurge or the archons, whoever. We were not made by them. We were not made by the extraterrestrials that visited us in the Bible stories or in the ark, the what do they call them? The Anunnaki and all of that stuff. We were not created by those guys, and we might have been modified by them to control us better, but the thing is, we have such powerful, what I call internal technology, that, we don't even remember how much we can do. We're just really powerful beings. And so some of us are trying to remember how to do stuff, right? And some of us are kind of sort of succeeding, but, it's like, okay, so now here's the idea. Every piece of technology that we invent, which probably comes from the ETs that were retrieved, or it's ET technology, what do they call it?
Back engineering.
Back engineered. Thank
Right,
you.
right.
So every part of that, or every kind of discovery that we make, these are, now this is according to the Essenes way back when. So these are like technologies that are within us that are like, okay, so now we're using the outside technology, the physical technology that's out, the material technology, when we have this ethereal technology inside ourselves. It's kind of natural. It goes with our, I guess we could call it our higher self or our soul or whatever. So that's kind of what we can do, what we have built in us. And the thing is, I don't know how to access that. I don't know anybody who really does, other than, I mean, I've seen a couple of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza. He puts people in a hypnotic state, and he gets them to that point of no thing that you talk about, Howie, to where they're hooked up to a machine to be measuring what's happening so that they can see the science of it. And so they get into this no thing space where they don't exist. They don't think anything. They're nowhere. There's no time. There's no space. There's nothing. And when they get to that point, they heal. Their bodies heal because they step into a new body, a brand new construction type of thing. That's, I mean, there's been some remarkable stories like, people that were blind can see, and people who couldn't walk can walk, and people who had, terrible, incurable diseases are now, they don't even exist. So I spent a lot of time watching this stuff because I wanted to know how do they do that, right? So that's really interesting stuff. And now, so I've been to, when I went to the Monroe Institute back in 2009, I wanted to confirm, because I have a scientific background, I wanted to confirm if out-of-body experiences were real. Because I'd had flying dreams since I was a kid, and, I went exploring, and I was having a good time. And then I just wanted to know if that was real stuff or was I just dreaming, imagining. And so I decided to go to the Monroe Institute and do their, I think it was 6 days, 7 days and 6 nights or something like that, session that they had. And it was their gateway. That's the first one that you have to take. If you're going to take any of them, you have to do the gateway program first. So I signed up for that. It was a lot of fun. I met some wonderful people. They had 22 in the class. So I went through that, and then finally, on one session, when they do the sessions, they have them in individual beds with a curtain, and then you have a headset that you listen to this recording. And so this particular time, I went out of body. I was kind of floating around the building, and I came around a corner, and here comes another student coming around the corner. I gave her a thumbs up. She turned around and went the other way, and I went the other way, and then we went back to our respective beds. And when all of this was done, we went down to the meeting room where everybody goes after a session and we compare notes. So I walked in and this lady says, I saw you. You gave me a thumbs up and I said, oh my God, this is real. And everybody laughed. Maybe I was the only one who wasn't sure. So that confirmed to me that out-of-body experiences are a real thing. But now I don't know about how Howdie, I have to question, was that actually real? I don't really know now.
Well, to simplify, I'm hitting my time limit here. I'm in a late time zone, but it's both. It's real as an experience, but then the question is, what is actually real in totality? Just like a dream. A dream is a real. You've had a dream. You've had an experience, but then the question is, but how do you know? Would you classify the dream as real? Most people would say, well, no, it wasn't really reality. If I killed somebody in my dream, I wouldn't go to the police and ask to be charged with murder.
Mhm.
But you had the experience. And that's a lot of that's why examining dreams and out-of-body experiences are valuable for the material realm. Seems like a table. How do you know? How do you test it?
Yeah,
How
how
do
do
you
you
find
know?
out
I mean, I tested it out for myself so I could confirm whether it was real or not.
Right.
And then in
Of
my
course, I
mind,
found
it
it.
was
And of
real.
course, it's
So
not. Well, of course, it's not.
it's
Doesn't
not.
exist at all. Of course not.
Hmm.
Not at all. Nothing's real here.
Okay, so even though I thought that it was real,
It's a real experience, though. It's an honest experience from the standpoint of awareness, but it's not what we think it is. So
what do you?
I'll leave one final comment, and then I'll, like I say, get ready for bed. I've been here in Europe. I'm in Mark's timeline, but I think he's used to later nights than I am. French guys, they eat late and they talk with their friends, and it would be for everybody listening out there who's new to any of our material, hasn't seen any of this, who's bumping in. And I say, well, what's your base suggestion? And my base suggestion is to start with empathy. Just base empathy to realize you're a suffering creature and you're surrounded by suffering creatures, not just humans. Animals, plants, trees, everything. Everything here is going through a reality that's built to eat something else just to stay alive. And as soon as we have not compassion, right? You're not trying to, you don't feel bad for them. We empathize. We're equal. We're both going through a suffering experiences. I think as soon as you start with that stepping stone, you begin to interconnect with the reality. And that's the first step. And then the second step is what we call getting your house in order. It's just learn how to get your inner world to be what you want it to be. And takes time. There's no rush. Work through it. As your inner world gets how you'd like it to be, your outer world starts to get to be the way you want it to be. And now you've got some time, you've got some energy, you can put that to what you want to do. And everybody can do that. Have empathy for other creatures. Get your inner world in order. It'll all start to work from there. And just be a friend. Find somebody to be a good friend, and that's all. So thanks, Mark, for asking me to come on and join the show. Thanks, Sherry, I know of you, but you're just like James. I'd never actually met you, so it's nice to say hi. And thank you for mentioning the book and that you're reading it. It's appreciative. It was the books were very challenging to write, and I always hope there's something of value in there for people. So
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Howdie. And we'll catch you very soon. I'll keep you posted on whenever the video is released. And thank you for being on board.
thanks
And we
very
have
much.
some.
And
we
same
have
thing,
some.
Sherry. You know how to reach me if you want to say hi, or
Yeah, I will.
we
I
can
have
continue that conversation.
I have a few words that I'd like to say to the listening audience before you leave.
Sure.
I wrote this down because I just had this thought. So let's allow for the individuals watching this to emerge autonomous without fear of what happens after we leave our physical bodies. Whoever is listening, may they hear the truth amidst everything discussed in today's panel. So whatever the truth is, may you feel it.
Exactly. Go find it for yourself. That's all that
Find it.
matters. That's all that matters. Not what I think or Mark thinks or Sherry thinks or anyone else. It's only what you think.
Yeah, to me, the most important thing is balance and harmony within oneself. So that's all martial arts dictate, and I love that. So
Cool.
Yeah, remain authentic and true to yourself, at least.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening, and
Wonderful evening.
appreciate you having me here.
We'll see you next
Bye,
time
guys.
on DTV Dimensions TV. Cheers. Cheers.